rock solid, man. It's like on there. So that's wonderful.
3:30. How's it going, Nick?
Where's Scott? Is he here?
He is here.
Okay.
Yes.
It's nice and cool.
It's very nice and cool
I
here.
know.
Are we on Facebook Live, our audio right now? Okay. Well, sometime. Well, Lyle, here we go again.
Yeah. 2020. Boy, what a year. We're learning how to adjust. Everybody is, actually.
Unpredictable change. Right when you think it's going to start getting better, right when we think, hey, maybe we can start building towards something, back in the same position, 5 weeks of on-site, now online only. Yeah, and I think that's probably the way maybe a lot of people are feeling.
Yeah, for sure. We've been saying that adjustment is the name of the game, and everybody's learning how to adjust, including all of us here at TerraNova. And so that's good. You know, adjustment's good, change is good. It gives us an opportunity to trust God for things.
Very true, very true. I think for some people, this weekend came this week came as a bit of a surprise. Almost like the light at the end of the tunnel ends up being an oncoming train. Man, things aren't getting better. Things aren't maybe going to get better anytime soon. Maybe this is going to happen for quite a while now. Now parents are looking at, okay, what does it look like for my kids not go back to school? And people we're talking to are struggling with a lot of things like that. Like this is going to be around here for a while.
Yeah, for sure. You know, for me, the weekend that really felt like kind of things were kind of trending in a direction that we didn't want it to go in was 4th of July weekend. Because 4th of July weekend is historically this time that we do the Lake Forest Parade. It's always super fun, and we get to embrace our community, and that didn't happen. And then that night, there wasn't any public fireworks stuff. There were private displays of people trying to blow up the neighborhood, but nothing like way up in the sky.
So weird.
Yeah, very, very different 4th of July, and that was during a time where we were like, things are not exactly going great.
Yeah. Strange times and difficult times, I think, maybe for a lot of people. But here we are online again, maybe not for long. Looking at next week, giving an outdoor option. You'll hear more about that later. But wherever you're sitting right now, welcome. Thank you for joining us in your homes or wherever you find yourself. We're opening tonight with this great song that I think is just perfect for this week. And the song begins with this line, who breaks the power of sin and darkness. And maybe you feel like there's just a lot of darkness in the world right now, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings. And then it goes on to say, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. And it's this idea of God just being so much bigger and so much greater than everything. But as you know, a lot of the lyrics to this song, including like who brings order out of our chaos, who makes orphans sons and daughters, these are lines that are pulled from Scripture, including this great passage in Psalm 24.
Yeah, that's where the King of Glory title comes from, is Psalm 24. And there's this great picture where the psalmist says, open wide, you gates, open up, you ancient doors, that the King of Glory may come in. And so is this picture of the King walking into this fortified city, and he's just walking in, and it's regal, and it's powerful, and he's taking control. And I think it's just this invitation for us to really open up the doors of our lives today so that God can come in and do his great work. And that's what we're hoping for as we gather online here today.
So as we sing the song, as the band leads us, make this your invitation to God. To say, hey, God, I'm going to open up these ancient doors and let you come into my life and bring your glory with you. So the band's going to lead us. Thanks so much for being here with us online for part 6 of our series, Against the Flow. And let's join the band now as they lead us. Hopefully you'll join us with the lyrics on your app or on the website as well as we sing this song together.
Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty, oh, and so much stronger. King of glory, the King above all kings. Who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun, golden wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross, you would lay down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos? Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who rules the nation with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance, Worthy is the King, conquers the grave. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain. Worthy is the King, conquers the grave. Worthy is the Lamb that was slain. Our God is worthy, worthy. Oh, this is amazing grace. This is unfailing love. That you would take my place. That you would bear my cross. Oh, you laid down your life. I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I see Lord, all that you've done for me. All that you've done for me. Break every chain from me. Oh, you keep on setting me free. Everything is embers, and my heart remembers that you are here with me. In the middle of the storm, when everything gets scattered, oh, my heart will not be shattered. You are here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. There's truth that comes and sets me free. Oh, you are here, here with me. In the middle of the battle, well, this song will be my war cry, so my heart cannot deny. You are here with me. In the middle of the wilderness, surrounded by loneliness, where my soul cannot find rest. You are here with me. Whenever I call out your name, your answer always is the same. It's truth, this truth that comes and sets me Father, I call out your name. Your answer always is the same. Oh, 'cause you never change, you never change. This truth, it comes and sets me free. You are here. You're here with me. God, we're so grateful that you're here with us. You never leave us. You never give up on us, God. We have given up on ourselves time and time again. God, we have argued and tried to tell you that we are not good enough, that we are not capable enough, that we're not the right man, the right woman for the job. God, and you come back and time again, I am with you. I am for you. I am in you. God, we want to be in the midst of chaos. We want to be in the midst of your presence. We want to draw close to you while others scatter and flee. God, we want to draw close to you in this moment, God. To follow close behind you. You are with us, and we are with you. Into the quietness of your grace. Away from the noise of my mistakes. You lead me in ways that make me whole. So I walk in paths that restore my soul. So wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. I will follow you. Into the wildness of your grace. Away from the safety of my restraint. follow. I will follow you. I will follow you. Wherever you go, I know I will follow. I will follow you. I will follow you.
Let's pray together. Lord, we thank you that in you there is goodness, in you there is trustworthiness, there is faithfulness, there is so much love. And our hope is that as we focus on who you are and who you've been and how you've shown up and will show up, that would propel us towards greater trust, just as we seek to follow you in everything that's ahead of us. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you, guys. Well, hey, everybody, I want to welcome you to TerraNova Online. My name is Scott, and wherever you're watching right now and however you're part of this, we are so thankful that you're tuning in this weekend. Some of you guys, you might be watching on Facebook right now, and others, maybe you're in your living room and there's a couple people around you, but I've got a question that you can interact with, whatever the environment is. I want you to think about this for a second, and if you're on Facebook and you want to type a comment in or even to our YouTube channel, you can do that, or you can just kick the question around in the living room. But think about this. When it comes to like animals or critters or creatures, which one scares you the most? Like which one is frightening to you? And maybe other people disagree, but you're like, yeah, that thing just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Maybe it's a common one. It's snakes or it's spiders. For me, it's possums. Like if I ever see a possum, I don't know what I'm going to do. Normally, if I saw an animal that I felt was threatening me, I would want to attack it. But that one, it's like, no, I will freeze, okay? So whatever it is for you, it might be something different. It might be predictable. But interact in however way you want to do that right now. And after you've had a chance to kick that question around and have some fun with it, what I'd love to invite you to do is to pull out your phone and get on the TerraNova app right now. And so if you don't have the TerraNova app, just go ahead and download it. It's completely free. But as you will jump on that from week to week, you will be able to do so many different things on there. Maybe you're just looking at the worship lyrics on there. You're going to use message notes in a minute. But the first thing that you can do is fill out a Connect card on there. And we love hearing from everybody every single week on the Connect card. And so maybe there's kind of a new update and something that you're going through this week. And we'd love to hear about that. Maybe you've got a prayer request or there's something that you want to talk with one of our leaders about. And we would love to hear from you. Maybe you want to tell us what it is that really scares you, what creature, what animal it is. Whatever it is, let's just go ahead, spend some time filling that out, and so we can connect with you and be up to date with what you're going through. And that's just a simple way for us to do that. And also, if you happen to be watching and this is like one of your first times or your very first time connecting with TerraNova, I want to pause so I can just thank you for tuning in and giving this an opportunity. We are grateful for that. My hope is that it would be something that you find encouraging and practical and refreshing. My hope is that it's a great experience for you. And one of my other hopes is that you would spend some time just letting us hear from you via that Connect card. And so maybe that's just your opportunity to ask some questions that you have about who we are as a church community. But we would love it if you did so we could follow up with you and just thank you so much for being our guest. Well, each and every week, we have just been saying how grateful we are for the continued generosity that TerraNovans have been showing the last several months. That's been keeping us kind of on point and on purpose and mission when it comes to this desire to make God's love famous. And so thank you, TerraNova, for that continued generosity. If you're in a place where you're able to give financially during the season, hey, there's a lot of ways to do that. Like I mentioned, there's that TerraNova app, so you can give on there. You can give online on our website, and you can also mail a check in to our offices here at 7 Watney. But whatever way that you're able to give, man, we are just so grateful for that continued generosity. And as Lyle mentioned a little bit earlier, like the name of the game over the last several months has just been adjustments. It's been figuring out new ways to do different things, and you've probably experienced that in your home setting or maybe at work or maybe in a bunch of different relationship dynamics. And we're trying to figure out new ways of what that looks like to be a church community. And so one of the great things that it affords us is that as we're making adjustments, there's also this razor sharp clarity about what will never change. And so that even things look different a little bit right now is that we go, hey, we're never going to give up on this value and mission of making God's love famous. It might look a little bit different, but we're going at that. Even though even connection and groups sometimes look different during the season, man, we are going to hold on to that value. Even though we're not able to have children gathering every single weekend in person, well, man, we are not going to stop loving our kids and elevating the next generation. And so that's been fun, just being able to have that laser sharp focus as a church community. And one of the really cool things that we're doing at the end of this month is I'm so proud of our junior high and our high school staff. They are following suit of our children and preteen leaders of being able to offer just this interactive camp experience. Our Supernova Kids leaders offered VBS online last month, and now as junior high and high school camps look so different this year, our leaders are offering this great camp experience. And so if you've got a junior high or high school student, you want to make sure that they get signed up. This is a completely free. It's so many different ways of interaction that they're going to do this. And so sign up for it. If you've got questions, you can email Michael Lambrana, our high school pastor, or Doa Lynn, our junior high pastor. But a great opportunity to be connected in that. And even as I'm mentioning adjustments and changes, and maybe we're going, oh, I was in person at the hub last week, and now I'm just doing this online. Well, what does that look like? And we're processing that, and even as weeks go on, we go, okay, what does it look like this week? Well, as we are committed to that idea of going, however we're able to gather and however we can do that safely, we want to lean into that. We're so pumped that next weekend we get to roll out this brand new opportunity to be able to gather in person, and we're going to be doing it outdoors, and it's going to be a ton of fun. We're having this sundown Saturday night service that we're going to kick off next weekend, and let me tell you about it for just a moment. It's going to happen here at 7 Watney, but it's going to be completely outdoors. We're going to do it in our parking lot, and we're going to do it out in the open air, and it's going to start at 6 o'clock. So normally we gather at 5 o'clock, but we're going to gather at 6 o'clock, and there's a couple reasons why. One, it's going to be a little bit cooler then, which is nice if you're outdoors right now. And also, when you're in our parking lot at 6 p.m., you're completely in the shade, which is great, and that is a great place to be as well. So we're going to begin that next weekend. We're looking forward to doing that, which means that Saturday night, we'll have that in-person outdoor opportunity to gather. We'll also be online Saturday night, and at least for now, we'll be online only on Sunday mornings. And so next Saturday night, we'd love to invite those of you who are able to come out to be here in person. We'll be outdoors in our lot. If you want to bring a chair with, that's great. You can throw down a blanket. If not, we'll have some chairs out for you. But we're just looking forward to this opportunity where we can kind of hold on to that value and say, however we can continue to encourage and to support our community, we are absolutely going to do what we can. So as always, thank you so much, TerraNova, for being part of what we're doing and staying committed to what we are doing in our mission as a church. We thank you so much for that. Right now, we're going to jump into part 6 of our series, Against the Flow.
Again, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us online. As Scott just said, for part 6 of our series, on Daniel Against the Flow. Just to let you know, in 2 weeks, we're starting a brand new series for the month of August called Heart Scan. It's a 4-week series on what lies below the surface. Actually, it's a series largely about emotions that frequently create an undertow in our lives, emotions like fear and anger that you might be experiencing a bit of right now in this season of life. But in order to get our life right, we have to get our hearts right, and we're going to talk about how that happens in the month of August with this new series. But today we are in part 6 of our series on this ancient document found in the Hebrew Scriptures known as Daniel that we're calling Against the Flow. And it's the story, we've been saying, of 4 teenagers who were ripped from their homelands as prisoners of war, force-marched 1,000 or more miles across the Arabian desert to the great city of Babylon, where they are indoctrinated into Babylonian culture and worldview and religion and beliefs, a worldview that was hostile to their own culture and beliefs and to everything they held dear. They're given new names, new laws, new haircuts, new looks, new history, new language, and ultimately they are brought in to serve as civil servants to the central government of Babylon, to serve at the pleasure of a man named Nebuchadnezzar, who would eventually destroy their home city, killing probably many of the people that they grew up with, maybe even some of their own family members. And so I've been saying throughout this series, and one of the things I find most interesting about Daniel's story is that for 70 years, Daniel served for the good of Babylon. That he was, in fact, so helpful, so excellent, so good in his leadership and his administration that he and his 3 friends are consistently promoted to the very highest echelons of political power. And we've been saying they were for the city. They were for the city, for the good of the city, and we want to be for our city as well. But often they were against the flow. And from time to time, and we will face one of those times in the story today, at critical junctures, they draw lines in the sand, so to speak, and say with both respect and with unbelievable courage and confidence and conviction, listen, we are for you and we are for what is best for you, but we can't go there with you. Our lives will honor God and God alone. And so eventually, as the story goes, Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom comes to an end. It actually happens after his own death under the reign of his son Nabonidus and his grandson Belshazzar, where the Medes and the Persians from modern day Iran surround the city. History tells us this. And while Belshazzar partied because he thought the city was invincible, they snuck under the walls through the Euphrates River, and they conquered the city without a fight. It is an amazing, amazing moment in history. And so we ended last week, the closing line last week was that very night, Belshazzar, king of the Babylonians, was slain, and Darius the Mede took over the kingdom at age 62. And the point really here is that there is now suddenly a seismic shift in world powers, and Daniel, in his 80s now, is working for an entirely new empire. There has been a hostile takeover. And some of you have been in companies that have gone through a takeover, maybe in a hostile takeover, and you can maybe imagine how it might feel for Daniel and others, the insecurity, the uncertainty, what's changing, what's not going to change. And with this new administration, as you may have experienced at times in your life, comes some changes, some new systems. It pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps who are like governors or regional leaders to rule throughout his kingdom, and then he put 3 administrators over them that they would be accountable to. So he's creating like this decentralized form of government that's going to be more efficient, more effective, and there's chains of command and chains of accountability. And once again, Daniel finds himself in an even greater position of power and influence. In fact, Daniel so distinguished himself, we're told, among the administrators and satraps, next line, so distinguished himself by his exceptional qualities, literally his exceptional spirit, that the king actually plans to make him like the number 2, like prime minister over the whole kingdom. So helpful. Again, so engaged, so thoughtful, and so wise, though he lived in a culture that was hostile to much of what he holds dear and true, he is for them and for the good and for the city and for the kingdom. And it becomes so obvious to leaders like Darius that they just go, this guy, we have to promote him even higher. And whereas religious people And sometimes Christians have this us versus them mentality. It's like, they're against us, and so we're against them. As we've seen again and again, Daniel was not against Babylon, and he's not against Persia either. He is for them, and he's so helpful that once again, he has distinguished himself, and Darius wants to make him his prime minister, and that's when we see the dark underbelly of politics. At this, the administrators and the satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel in his conduct of government affairs. And we said earlier, in a series earlier this year, that one of the problems with politics is that it so often becomes about power and not about people. It just becomes about power, gaining power, keeping power, getting more power, and not really what's best for people, even if it's not best for us. That's one of the problems with political parties. It's one of the problems these days with political discourse, and it is certainly nothing new. And so one of the themes in the book of Daniel we've been saying is that wisdom and power are derivative. They're gifts. They come from God. They're a stewardship. It's not mine. And Daniel has lived his entire life holding the wisdom and power that he's been given from God in his hands openly like this. This is something that God has given me for people. It's not mine. But these men see power very differently from Daniel, and they are envious. I mean, imagine this. They are already rich and powerful. They are some of the richest, most powerful people on the planet. And they are envious of Daniel because they believe that if he gets more, they have less. And if they can bring him down, they'll have more. And they are envious, and perhaps out of bigotry as well, because throughout his life, Daniel faced religious and racial and ethnic hatred and bigotry. He's frequently referred to, even towards the end of his life, as one of those exiles from Judah. He's not one of us. He doesn't belong with us. That Jewish guy who holds to his unreasonable faith in his one God, I mean, how narrow-minded, how intolerant he is. And so, out of envy perhaps, out of bigotry perhaps, think about this. The most powerful people in the kingdom, the most powerful politicians in the kingdom align to dig up dirt on Daniel. Can you imagine that? Come on. Can you imagine the most powerful, most connected people on the planet doing opposition research on you? Now, here's one of those moments in the story that is so easy to read past and not notice. As they seek to find something against him, they are unable to do so. That's remarkable. I mean, come on, that's remarkable. They can't find anything. I mean, can you imagine like running for president? God help you. Like if you were running for president and the opposition party, maybe it's the RNC or the DNC, whoever your nemesis would be, probably in conjunction with some spies, maybe the Russians, maybe the Chinese, maybe the CIA, and they can't find anything on you. I mean, come on. Could my life hold up to such scrutiny? Such is the integrity, the loyal, the faithfulness, the excellence of Daniel, both in his character and in his work. They could find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men say to themselves, we are wasting our time. This is getting us nowhere. We will never find any basis for charges against Daniel unless it has something to do with his God, with the law, with the religion, with the faith that he has in his God. In other words, they know all about Daniel's faith. That Daniel's faith is not hidden. It's not secret. It's not private. It's public. His unreasonable faith, his utter devotion to his one God, they know that is the one thing in his life that he places even higher than his devotion to the people that he serves. They believe, here's what they think, that's his weakness. That's going to be his weakness. That's where he's vulnerable. And so they hatch a plan. So these administrators and satraps, they went as a group to the king and said, may King Darius live forever. They're so fake, right? The royal administrators and prefects and satraps and advisors and governors have all agreed. We had like this executive team meeting, and then we brought in middle management, and the leadership teams came together, and we have all agreed that the king, you know what you should do? You should issue an edict and then enforce the decree that anyone who prays to any god or human being during the next 30 days except you, like you become the focus, the conduit to the gods, the focus of all prayer, and incense will be burned and prayers will be said in your name. Anybody who does anything other than that for the next 30 days, Your Majesty, they shall be thrown into the lion's den. Now, there's actually a lot of historical evidence that ancient Mesopotamian kings, the Babylonians and even the Persians, they were fascinated with lions. Hunting them, killing them, capturing them, keeping them. They were symbols of power. They were symbols of courage. The walls of Babylon were decorated with images of lions. Nebuchadnezzar, I said in week 2, actually used to keep a couple of them chained to the sides of his throne. He was the original Tiger King, right? And so apparently there's an enclosure in or near the city somewhere where a bunch of these lions are being kept, perhaps not that humanely. And so these leaders come to Darius and they say, we've all talked about this. We've all talked about this and we all agree. Now, quick question. Who does Darius think all includes? He probably thinks it includes Daniel, too. Look, we've all agreed that this would be good for you. This will be good for you. This will be good for our kingdom as you decentralize power through the satraps and administrators. This is a great way to remain the center of loyalty and devotion. This is a great idea for you, Your Majesty. So now, Your Majesty, issue the decree and put it in writing so that it can't be altered, in accordance with the law of the Medes and Persians, which cannot be repealed. Now, this ends up being kind of an important side point of the story, that unlike Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonians, the Babylonian kings were a law to themselves. I mean, they could do whatever when they wanted it. They could break whatever law, change whatever law they wanted whenever they wanted to. The Persian kings, history tells us, were actually subject to the rule of law. And once a law had been made, even the king had to abide by it. And so they're like, this would be so great for you, O king. In fact, you should make it a law. You should make it written down, a decree that can't be repealed. And we just think this will be great for you and great for the kingdom too. And apparently, Darius thinks it sounds pretty great as well. And so he agreed, and the king put the decree in writing. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, pause right there. What do you think he did? What would you do? What would you have done? You learned that your peers have deceived your boss and are into passing an irrevocable order that if you pray, you die. I mean, think about that. How do you feel? How do you react to something like that? What do you do when you find that out? It's a pivotal moment in the story. He learned that this decree has been published. And so he went home to his upstairs room where the windows were open toward Jerusalem, that by this time has been destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar. And 3 times a day, he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks. Like, whoa. I'm sorry. Giving thanks? Daniel, hold on. You're grateful? You're grateful right now? Daniel, aren't you mad? Aren't you mad? Aren't you discouraged? Aren't you disheartened? Aren't you disgruntled? Aren't you fed up? Like, here we go again. I thought we were past all of this nonsense. Daniel discovers that this new law has been passed really against him. It's very clear. It is against him and him really alone. And the first thing he does is pray. The first thing he does is pray, giving thanks to his God, because that is what he's always done. Because that's what he always does. And note this, he doesn't flaunt it and he doesn't hide it. He doesn't flaunt it, he doesn't go out to make a big public statement about it, but he doesn't hide it either. He doesn't close up all the doors and windows and climb under a few blankets and it's like, God sees my heart, nobody else needs to know. He doesn't flaunt it, he doesn't hide it, he just does what he always does. Unashamed, unafraid, uncompromising, he prays as he always prays. In other words, He's obvious about his faith. He's public about his faith. People know about his faith. He's unashamed about it. From the beginning, from chapter 1, he wanted his life to point to God and to point other people to God. He is obvious about his faith, but he is not obnoxious about his faith. How about you? How about you? Is your relationship with God obvious to people who know you, people who see your life? Is your faith obvious but not obnoxious to the people who know who you really are? And if you're not really sure if it is, I guarantee they know if it is or not. Now, because Daniel is so public about his faith, these men know exactly what to do next, where to find him, and where he will be. Then these men went as a group, and they found Daniel. They can hear him from the window, or maybe they crack open the door, and they see him praying and asking God for help. So they went to the king, and they spoke to him about the royal decree, and they approached the king, and they're like, I'm sorry, Darius, we're just wondering, we're trying to remember, wasn't it yesterday? I think it was yesterday. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human being, what was it? It was like anyone except you. Wasn't that how it went, Your Majesty? They would be thrown into, that's right, into the lion. We're just trying to remember the exact details. We're a little confused. And the king answers, he's like, what are you guys even doing here? The decree stands in accordance with the law in Medes and Persians. It cannot be repealed. And that's when they say, yeah, we thought so. And this is a little awkward, O king, but you know that guy Daniel? You know that guy Daniel? One of the exiles from Judah, 70 years later, that's still how they see him. One of the captives from Judah, that far-flung, tiny little kingdom on the western outskirts of your great empire with their strange beliefs about their only one God. That Daniel, he pays no attention to you, which of course is not true, but that's how politics usually go, right? Half truths, manipulating truths because what they want is power. He pays no attention to you, Your Majesty, or to the decree you put in writing. Now that part is true. He still prays 3 times a day. And when the king heard this, he was greatly distressed. Suddenly he knows that this whole thing was not about loyalty to him. It was not about what was good for his kingdom or his administration or for people. This was political, and this was an attack on him and someone he respected. And so, for the rest of the day, he sets out to try to find some kind of loophole, some kind of way to save Daniel, some kind of workaround to the decree that has been put in writing, but he cannot find a way to save Daniel. And at sundown, the men come back as a group. They come back as a group to King Darius and said to him, Remember, Your Majesty, that according to the law of the Medes and Persians, no decree that the king issues can be changed. And so the king gave the order. And armed guards come to Daniel's home, and they arrest him, most likely bind him and lead him out as he had been as a teenager, ripped from his homeland, marched as a captive, this time through the city, as people look on, curious, wondering what's going on, to the enclosure where the lions are kept, and to his certain death. And as the king watches powerlessly, it's with some regret and desperation in his voice that he says to Daniel, right before he's thrown into the enclosure with the lions, may your God, whom you serve, I love this, whom you serve continually. You know what Darius knows about Daniel? You know how he sees Daniel, what he thinks about Daniel? Well, he knows Daniel's a very smart man. He knows he does things with excellence. He knows he has incredible integrity. But here's what he knows about Daniel. Daniel serves God, and he serves God always. He's like, I don't know what I believe about your God. I mean, it's kind of weird. There's only one God and not many paths to God, and I kind of think there's many paths, and you think there's only one, and I don't know what I think about that. But here's what I know about you, Daniel. You serve your God always, continually. Now, just a really quick question before we move on. Wouldn't you love for people to see you that way? I mean, people who don't believe what you believe, who aren't really sure what you believe about God and what they believe about God, wouldn't you love it if even if they weren't sure what they believed about what you believe, that they saw you like Darius sees Daniel? Now, for the rest of the story, we're faced with a little bit of a problem because this is what makes it hard, I think, for us to really hear the story, because for a lot of us, maybe for most of us, we know how the story ends. We know how the story ends, and so we don't feel the pressure of the story, and that might lead us to assume that Daniel doesn't really feel the pressure of the story in this moment either. But listen, Daniel hasn't read the end of his book yet, and Daniel doesn't know that this night will make the highlight reel, not only of his life, but of the entire Bible. It's like Daniel in the lion's den. It's one of the top 10. He doesn't know this is a highlight reel moment. He is in the middle of his story right now, just like you. Just like you are in the middle, facing whatever fears and uncertainties you're facing in the middle of your story right now. He's in the middle of the story, does not know how it will end. But like that great line from chapter 3, from the third story that we looked at, where Hananiah and Mishael and Azariah, better known as Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, say to King Nebuchadnezzar, who is in full rage mode at this moment in the story in chapter 3, and he's pounding on his chest. He's about to throw these defiant guys into the fire, and he's saying, "What God is able to rescue you from my power?" And these three young men, they look at this powerful, powerful man, and they say, this is amazing there. The first thing they say is, "We don't even need to defend ourselves to you." It's like, what? You do not say that to Nebuchadnezzar. And then they say, if we are thrown into this blazing furnace, the God we serve, you wonder who's able to save us? The God we serve is able. He's able. He's able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But here is the line. It's one of the best lines in the entire book of Daniel. But even if he doesn't, even if he does, God is not on the hook to save us. He is not obligated to save us. And even if he doesn't, we want you to know it doesn't change a thing. Your Majesty, we will not serve your gods or worship this image of gold that you want us to bow down to. And in the same way, Daniel knows God is able, but he does not know if God will. And yet, even if God doesn't. See, Daniel doesn't continue praying because he believes nobody can touch him. Daniel doesn't continue praying because he thinks he's safe, like he's Teflon, like nothing can get to him. No. Daniel continues praying because he would rather get eaten by lions than stop praying. Daniel continues praying because he would rather die as they would, then compromise or hide his relationship with his heavenly Father. Daniel would rather die than not pray because back in chapter 1, 70 years ago, as a teenage POW, Daniel resolved. Early in his life, my life will honor God alone, and it will point other people to God and to God alone. Daniel had resolved. Have you? Have you resolved that your life will honor God? Regardless of the cost, regardless of the outcome, regardless of how things play out for you, have you resolved that you will be faithful to God? That you will be faithful to God, that your life will point to God, that you will follow his will for your life, regardless of the cost and regardless of the outcome. That's the decision that teenage POW Daniel had made. And so it is that now, as an 80-plus-year-old man, he's pushed down into the enclosure of the lions, and a stone is brought and placed over the mouth of the den, and then the king comes and seals it with his own signet ring and with the rings of his nobles, so that Daniel's situation might not be changed. And then the king went home to his palace, and he spends a sleepless night alone, knowing that he's been duped, that he was betrayed, that he was used by his own nobles, knowing that he had condemned an innocent man. a man that he had actually come to respect, a brilliant, wise, older man, that he had condemned this man to an unjust death, and he can't sleep that night. And as soon as the sun begins to break the next morning, at the first light of dawn, he's up out of bed, he grabs his entourage, he's got his chariot made ready, and he hurries off to where the enclosure is, and when he gets near, he hops out and he gets near to the den, he calls out to Daniel in an anguished voice, Daniel, 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 servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? I mean, Darius doesn't know a whole lot about Daniel's God. He hasn't known Daniel for very long, but you see, like, there's hope. He's like, I've heard some stories, maybe. And then there's a voice from the enclosure. May the king live forever. And in that moment, Darius knows, it's unbelievable. He's alive. He survived the night. How can that be? His mind is racing to make sense of it. And Daniel goes, my God who has sent his angel, the word means messenger. My God sent his messenger, and he shut the mouths of lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. And by the way, O king, I'm innocent in your sight too. I have never done anything wrong before you, either your majesty. Well, the king is, so relieved. He's so overjoyed. And he immediately gives orders for the seal to be broken and Daniel to be brought up out of the den. And when Daniel is brought up from the den, and there's this little line in the story that's added that brings us back to the story of the three friends who were brought out of the fire after Nebuchadnezzar realizes it hasn't touched them. And that in that story, we're told they didn't even smell of smoke. Like, it didn't even affect them. And here we're told, like, there's not even a scratch on him. There's not even a scratch on him, because he had trusted in his God. But now the story takes really kind of a dark, ugly turn. And at the king's command, the men who falsely accused Daniel were brought in, and they now are thrown into the lion's den along with their wives and their children. And before they reached the floor of the den, lions overpowered them and crushed all their bones, which is horrible. It's just horrible. It's a horrible moment in the story. But honestly, this is the way kings and people of power in the ancient world, and often in the world today, have dealt with their enemies. It's like, I'm not just going to kill you. I'm going to kill your family. I'm going to kill your children. I'm going to kill your next door neighbors. I'm going to kill your business partners. I'm going to kill everybody who knows you. And that was just a very common thing to do in the ancient world. And at times in our modern world, it has been common as well. But here's the thing. As dark and ugly and unjust, as horrible as that is, here's what's true. And this is always true. Your life and your choices always ripple into the lives of others, especially those that are closest to you. Your lives and our choices always ripple into the lives of others. And it may not always be as obvious or dramatic as this, but you and I never have the luxury of only hurting ourselves. And I hear people say all the time, well, it's my body, or it's my health, or it's my money. This only affects me, but you and I never have that luxury. Everything we do ripples for better or worse into the lives of the people closest to us. Well, the scene comes to a close, and we open again with Darius now in his palace, writing a letter to his entire kingdom. To the peoples of every language on all the earth. And similar to Nebuchadnezzar in a scene earlier in the book, Daniel writes, may you prosper greatly. I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. The God of Daniel. Isn't that interesting? See, that's how Darius sees God. He's the God of Daniel. And by the way, if you've got friends watching you, in your spiritual journey, this is probably how they see God as well. That they see God through the lens of your life, for better or worse, right? Through your generosity and goodness and love and respect and faithfulness and joy and peace, for better or worse. If they're watching your life and trying to figure out God, it's like, it's your God. Now, Daniel's case, it was for better, right? And so he writes, for he is the living God. And that phrase living God means not just that he exists or that he's alive, but that he's active in the world. He's present and active. He is the living God, and he endures forever. And then he takes these two lines and expands on them. First with the second part, he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. Mine will. This is Darius' realization. His dominion, his kingdom will never end. Mine will. Mine is temporary. His eternal. His is eternal. And back to that living God, the active part, he rescues and he saves. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders, not just out there somewhere in the heavens, but right here in the world in which we live. Unlike the gods of the ancient world, he is present and active and not just distant from us. And he has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. And so, Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Indeed, he did, as he had throughout his life in a culture that stood, once again, opposed to everything that he was about. He thrived. He thrived because of his excellent spirit, because of the way he had about him. Now, here's the thing. Most of us aren't probably stuck in a pit with a pride of hungry lions, right? And probably never will be, but I bet sometimes it feels like it. And I bet maybe sometime this week, or sometime in the past few weeks, I bet it might feel like you are. The lions of uncertainty, the lions of unpredictable change, and when will things get better? And right when I was thinking they were going to get better and the light at the end of the tunnel was an oncoming train and now it's going to happen. The lions of unemployment, the lions of underemployment, of financial anxiety and economic anxiety. And by the way, we've been saying this, I'll say it again. If you or anyone you know is hurting financially, if there's something we can do to help, please let us know. Even if it's a neighbor, it's a friend, it's a loved one. We want to show them God's love and care through you, and we want to show it to you as well. Just let us know. The lions of depression, maybe you've been experiencing some of those this week. Just the darkness, just the feeling of, is this ever going to be better? The hopelessness, lions of grief, lions of cultural conflict and political conflict that have perhaps seeped into key relationships in your life. You may never get thrust to literal lions, but here's a question. What do you do when you're thrown into a pit with one of these lions? And all of a sudden what you thought, and now you're facing the fear and the uncertainty of it. How do you have the unwavering courage and faith of Daniel? I mean, come on, really? The conviction of this man, when it feels like you're about to get eaten alive, that everything's about to fall apart. And part of the answer to that question, I think, has to do with Daniel's response to his discovery that this law has been passed quite literally against him. When Daniel learned of the decree, he did the same thing he had been doing his entire life in captivity in Babylon. He prayed. He prayed. See, Daniel didn't begin a habit of prayer when faced with God. Like, maybe I should start praying. He had already built a habit of prayer, and that's what he leans on now. It's like muscle memory. It had become such a natural part of his life that was his go-to. He goes home, windows open, on his knees, 3 times a day. It's a habit. It's a habit that he's built into his life. And it's the small habits of faith that truly lead to great moments of faith. It's the small habits of faith that truly lead to great moments of faith. And Daniel's highlight reel, this amazing story, is made possible by a lifetime of small moments, small everyday moments of devotion, moments of discipline, moments of dedication, and unwavering faithfulness to his God. It's the small habits of faith that lead to great moments of faith. Aristotle once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Never be mistaken about that. You cannot be what you never do. You are what you repeatedly do. Excellence is not an act, it's a habit. It's the small habits of faith that lead to great moments of faith. So as I end today, I just want to ask you, how are your daily habits doing? What are your daily habits these days? Are they building a life of excellence? Are they building a life of faith? And for many of us, we'd have to say, man, my habits have changed dramatically over the last few months. I mean, there was January, and then there was February, and I was starting to go strong, and I had a lot of things built in. There was financial, and there was health, there was getting the gym, and I was part of weekend gatherings, and I was in a small group, and I had all of these habits built in my life, and it's like almost all of them were taken away They were all upended, right? And initially, maybe I thought like, well, hey, it's just crazy, right? I'll get back to it in a few weeks. I'll get back to the gym in a few weeks. I'll open up my body. It's a little different. I mean, I'll get back to that part of my journey in a few weeks, and then a few weeks, and then in a few weeks that have lasted a few months. So here's a question for you. What if this season continues? What if it's a year? What if it's longer? How long can we delay the small habits that will lead to great moments? Or here's maybe a more precise question. What are your daily habits of connection with God? What are your daily habits of communion and relating and relationship with God? You know what they say? They say the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is right now. The best time to plant a tree, yeah, that was 20 years ago. You know what the next best time is? Today. The best time to start a foundational habit in your life that will build strength and courage was 20 years ago. Next best time? Right now. Today. Start the habit today. Start building habits, the small habits in your life of connection and faithfulness to God that will lead to great moments of faith. Don't know where to begin? I've got a suggestion for you. Begin with Daniel. I mean, maybe you've been kind of tracking a little bit with this series, and maybe you just go, I'm not going to wait any longer. Today is a great day to plant a tree, and I can't wait for things to settle down. And you just go, I'm going to read Daniel. I'm going to go back. I'll listen more to some of the messages. I'll repeat them, and then I'm going to open up the book of Daniel for myself, and actually read the stories, maybe a chapter a week, just work my way through them, read them again and again, and talk to God about how I want these things worked into my life. Maybe that would be a great place to start. Just so you know, our staff is about to begin a series of emails and videos about how many of us connect with God and with God's guidance and purpose and encouragement throughout our days and throughout our weeks. And here's why I love this idea, because we are all so different. We're so different, and we connect with God in different ways, and that's actually a good thing. And you need to know that too, that you connect with God in ways that might sometimes be similar to how I do it, and maybe sometimes differently, and that's okay. And so we're actually, for once or twice a week, usually, we're going to send out videos with things to read and exercises to do, and I want to encourage you to do them, to maybe build that into some daily habits. Try them. Not all of them will just work perfectly for you, but I bet you'll find a number of them that do, because there will be they're like practical steps and things that you can start doing, and we want to help you find those habits. Listen, the best time to have planted that tree, yeah, that was 20 years ago. Next best time? Right now. Right now. Don't delay. Start today building habits like Daniel, the small habits of faith that will result in great moments of faith. Plant the tree. Start building the habit of connection and communion with God daily, moment by moment, throughout your day. Connection and communion with God, leaning into his perspective, leaning into submitting to his perspective, submitting to his strength, submitting to his will throughout your day. And by all means, do not miss next week and the series finale. Let me close this in prayer. Heavenly Father, once again, thank you for these amazing stories, even stories that we think we've heard before. Just hit us in a fresh way as you speak to us. And so I just pray that you will. I know that we're all different. We hear things in different ways, and we're at different seasons of our lives. So I just want to pray for every single one of us listening or watching right now, that we would have ears to hear what you wanted to say to us just then. And we would hear it. And we would have the wisdom to know what to do with it. And God, would you please give us the grace and the power this week to put it into play as we resolve with our lives, we will be faithful to you, that our lives will point to you, and we build into our lives then the small habits of devotion and discipline and dedication to you that will lead to great moments of faith in our lives. And I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, hey, real quick before you sign off, please take a moment, if you haven't already done so, to fill out the Connect card that's either on your app or on the watch page if you're watching online as well. You fill out. We'd love to hear from you. You can throw in there the question Scott asked earlier, what's the scariest possum? I don't know. Whatever it is for you, would you let us know? We'd love to hear from you. Of course, as Scott said, there are many ways to give, and you can give through the app. You can give through the website. You can click the button for the next slide. Yep, there it is. And you can send checks to TerraNova as well. And then don't forget, next Saturday night, sundown Saturday nights, 6 to 7, not at 5 o'clock. An hour later, we're sitting in the shade outdoors at 7 Watney, and online Saturday night and Sunday morning. If you can't show up, we'll see you online as well. God bless you. See you next weekend for sundown Saturday night.